Don Giovanni's relationships with the characters is one which is fundamental to how he is perceived as a character and also as a man and as an actor on stage. It's very useful for me to understand clearly where the relationships lie. Donna Anna, we see in the very first scene, of course, we have decided that she is somebody who is experiencing things for the first time, that she's inexperienced, not necessarily naive, but somebody who Giovanni would be interested for her position. She's engaged, perhaps that makes her more attractive. She's obviously the daughter of the top lawman in the region. He likes that risk element. So there's that relationship, which is in the end his undoing, because in this production, Giovanni cannot help but try to remind her that he is the seducer in a very inopportune moment. She discovers, or realizes in the end, that Giovanni is potentially the murderer of her father. Donna Elvira, on the other hand, is somebody who arrives determined to find out what this monster, as she calls him in her very first sentence, what he has to explain for himself. Why did he leave? Why did he promise her so much? Why did she give herself open completely to his care? He did spend 3 days with her, so it says. So there must have been something interesting about her. Her character develops into something which at first is confrontational and perhaps a little pathetic, but then which develops into something much more honorable, and Giovanni realizes that she's turning into somebody who actually he can't compete with. So he's always just saying, no, I need her to go. She appears to be crazy, and he tries to convince others that she's crazy. She's actually got a lot of sense about, ethics and reasonability of behavior and constancy in relationships. So he's saying, no, I don't want that. I still have other things to do. The relationship with Zerlina, which is the only time we see a successful seduction by Don Giovanni, is perhaps the most complete, the most interesting, and the most dramatic. Because she starts as somebody who seems to be just a peasant involved in a peasant wedding, and she goes all the way to being quite strong as a character. The initial encounter with Giovanni, we're already seeing that she has perhaps ideas that she could match this guy in some way. His energy and all that he has to offer. She's not willing simply to allow him to sweep over her. Giovanni realizes this, and I think as a final conquest, he perhaps enjoys it the most of any of that we would see. But for me, Don Giovanni and Zerlina is the linchpin of his sexual relationship. The ability for him to be able to show that his seduction and his charms are evident, that she is an attractive woman, that she gives in to him, is a very useful thing for me as a character. But for me, the most important relationship in the opera is that between Don Giovanni and Leporello. Now, these two need each other. They're an odd couple, perhaps. Leporello, I think, enjoys the fantasy of the life that he's leading. He's clearly a support to Giovanni, but complains all the time. The repartee between the two is often of a married couple, where they're bantering, bickering, but even from the very, very start, in the murder scene, there's a sense that if Leporello was not around, Giovanni would be alone. And this is something that Giovanni cannot possibly entertain. So it's a really useful relationship, because although he mistreats and gets a lot out of Leporello because of his inefficiency or his pranks or whatever, he still uses him absolutely as his support and depends on him completely. I think at the end, I hope that we can show that actually the relationship between them has been a very, very powerful one. One of the biggest challenges about Don Giovanni is playing a character which everybody sees in the auditorium, but actually he has these relationships with the people on the stage, and it's actually, he's more defined by that than he is by how he's observed from the audience. And that's been a really interesting process to do.